Forward to a philosophical approach, cosmological. It is perfectly fine for ordinary people that have not drank the Kool-Aid of a professional cosmological atheist to consider the universe from a personal and philosophical informed viewpoint, with information from reputable physicists and some perhaps less so, in addition to theologians and philosophers. A few physicists and evolution scientists with a legion of herd followers have taken up atheism as a consequence of scientific insight. I do not share that unsupportable line of thinking. Herein are my recent posts related at least generally to the field of cosmology. One might readily compare and contrast select ideas from theology on topics like predestination, inclusive of macrocosmic determinism, with the opinions about modern physics on predeterminism in the post-Newtonian era. In this book, I've hit upon such subjects in passing rather than systematically. It would be worthwhile building up an inventory of questions from theology that could be considered in contrast to comparative fields of study in physics and physical cosmology, to find where they are in agreement or disagreement, if they happen to overlap in shared concerns. If I ever get to that sort of project, it would be in the future, God willing, and the Higgs field permitting. A philosophical approach to analyzing human experience might be regarded as a process of discovery, finding the experience existing, a given and good fact. Thinking individuals may inquire regarding the nature and way of being and its process of changing in a continuum of form and reform. In writing these informal essays and comments on contemporary interests, I wanted to put some philosophical intention on it for the good. Descartes contemplated a method of affirming existence from first principles, an epistemological investigation of self-awareness. Aristotle presented numerous categories of classification of substance and logic. Socrates and Plato thought of the ideal state and of truth. They looked into what select concepts are, for example, what is the good, anticipating the utilitarian inferences from that concept. Individuals considered by others as philosophers have examined many of the same matters concerning individual actualization, language, government of the many, and the way people interact phenomenally, e.g. Sartre's Being and Nothingness and Critique of Dialectical Reason. Confucius, Hobbes, and Marx presented new social theories, while Hume examined causality. Philosophers of history like Arnold Toynbee have considered recurrent social historical cycles. Individuals of countless generations have inquired into the destiny of spirit, mind, and matter that are considered to be essential elements of human life. Philosophers have studied how personal perception and cognitive paradigms influence concepts about the physics of the universe. Philosophers may try to find some practical applications of learning in the midst of the great population of the world, inertially proceeding with more than 7 billion contemporary living souls empirically coexisting. The world may be a stage, as Shakespeare commented in Hamlet, upon which people strut and fret their hour. Philosophers may demur from the point that it is no more than sound and fury signifying nothing. The Bible, a work of little books with revealed knowledge from God, offers the wisdom of Solomon, presenting the humble condition of mankind who is like a blade of grass under the eternal existence and glory of God. Faith in God as the true wisdom and reason life has meaning in society today is set against a social abyss of godless materialism as an end for itself, without belief in much of anything else besides science. Since science means knowledge, scientific method ought to mean knowledge method. Today, an individual pursuing knowledge should include wisdom and spirit, rather than just cut himself off a priori to follow preconceived atheistic lines. A philosophical approach through science is challenged with the profusion of cosmological avenues of approach and tools for investigation that are self-evident and not improved with select biases against the idea of God. My philosophical approach to various issues in the world follows from decades of interest in philosophy and its development over the course of history. The history of philosophy, quite early, coincides with and often informs the development of civilization, intellectual history, and leadership flowing with it. Thus, the title selection of these 4 books reflect my own philosophical regard for select issues occurring in contemporary history. There are perennial questions in philosophy of interest to specialists, generalists, and ordinary people that many or even most people are familiar with concerning the soul, life after death, free will, the difference between good and evil, forms of governance, ethics, metaphysics, cosmology, physics, language, epistemology, memory, the meaning of language values, and so forth. After a student of philosophy, has familiarized himself with these issues regarding the classics of Western and Eastern philosophy and religion, he may still wish to consider contemporary history and its instantaneous concerns distributed globally on the internet each second of the day since the start of the third millennium at least. The approach is to considering live issues of contemporary history with a philosophical sense of detachment, yet with active concern for putting intention on the politics and public perceptions of those issues in order to promote the good of humanity. A Socratic concern with Christian ethical points about the welfare of one's fellow human being might generally be reduced to four: a philosophical approach practical, a philosophical approach theoretical, a philosophical approach theological, and a philosophical approach cosmological. The material of these books were essays and comments posted on my blog, garycgibson.blogspot, in real time, later sorted into these general categories. I cannot say that they were of much use for moving American society in a better direction away from its feminist, homosexualist, globalist, plutocratic, evolutionary, dismal, dead, atheistic, entrenched swamp. One must try to keep a society reasonably well informed and moving in a positive direction. It is too easy, alternatively, for a society to take up bad ideas and ethics and to go to places where wicked societies have gone before. Maybe science is relative truth and conditional. One cannot demand that science produce absolute truth after Einstein's transcending implications of the general and special theories of relativity brought physics to the threshold of an ocean of temporal change. In the 20th century, philosophy developed through the Vienna Circle and with the rise of symbolic logic started by Frege, continuing on to Strauss and Quine and Kripke. It was possible to comprehend the nature of meaning and meaning of epistemology along with subjective ideas about it. Prior to the 20th century, philosophical advance, the history of philosophy might be found best in a few giants from pre-Socratic philosophers to the peripatetic philosophers, early scientific philosophers like Pythagoras and Democritus, and theologian greats such as Augustine, to Descartes, Hegel, Kant, and a few others. Science, before the rise of observational experimental methods of verification in the field of cosmology, was in a sense metaphysics. Yet people such as Parmenides and Heraclitus didn't have much accurate technical knowledge of the cosmos. They could make logic-based inferences, some of which resonate with more thought, such as the spinning bucket paradigm of Newton and gravity. If five theories explaining the origin of matter and energy equally share claim to validity, it might be fair to call the paradigm one of metaphysics, even though the individuals are excellent particle physicists. Metaphysics is about conjecture and explaining cosmology theoretically without directly confirming or validating tests. Science alternatively looks to tangible material avenues of advance of confirmation. I mentioned above that science need only confirm its theories on reasonable logical grounds rather than exhaustively and exclusively of any other explanation. Conditional and relative truths that are logically consistent with their premises may be the best of scientific certainty about reality that is possible. The epistemological grounds of knowledge, human knowledge, is not absolute or infallible and is immersed within a physical media being it cannot view from outside, as a flying fish might regard the ocean in which it swims. The Lord Jesus Christ transcended what is seemingly impossible for humans. The Savior could love those that persecuted him, while humanity finds it quite challenging to actually love those that do so. Christians may employ metaphysical paradigmata themselves these days in reinterpreting the Old Testament in light of the shifting sands of temporal knowledge, while knowing that God is greater than they.